Hi, wonderful people. I'm Leah Rapaner. As a sociologist, University of Melbourne professor, founder of the Gender Equity Initiative, director of the Future of Work Lab, woman, wife, and mother, I've made it my life's mission to take down every ridiculous gender myth out there. Together, we'll deep dive into the research to get to the bottom of all these misperceptions that are holding all of us back. Don't worry, I've studied these types of questions for decades, and after publishing countless articles exactly on these topics, I know when they are nonsense or real truths. And I'm going to help you learn that too. So here we go. Let's do it. This is Misperceived. Happy New Year. We're back. It's 2025. How did you ring in your new year? What did you do? Are you like me where you do nothing and then wish the day would end, try to go to bed early only to be interrupted by the fireworks, people having joy, the celebrations? Or did you have a great New Year's Eve? On today's episode of Misperceived, we're going to talk about, are New Year's resolutions bullshit? Do they work? Should you set them? And if you do, how do you make them stick? I'm going to tell you, I used to set New Year's resolutions when I was trying to be aspirational and be a better person. And then I realized that I'm pretty fucking great the way I am. And I stopped setting New Year's resolutions. Part of that is because I have enough accountability in my life. I have a mortgage. I have a full-time job. I don't need anyone else telling me whether I have an Apple Watch. I have one of those, I have a watch that tracks my steps. I don't need anyone else telling me I'm not succeeding in some sort of arbitrary goal I've set to do something that who knows if it matters. So I don't hold New Year's resolutions because I don't want one more way to hold myself accountable. I don't want one more way to feel bad when I don't achieve what I intended. And I just want to go with the flow. But I know many of you might like a New Year's resolution, or you might want one, or they might be helpful. So how do we understand from the research what you should be thinking about if you like that or you want to, or what you want to do? I will say that I do set goals. I don't set New Year's resolutions, but I do set in my life goals, in particular professional goals or personal goals. And as I'll talk you through the research, that's not that different from what a New Year's resolution is. How do we set our ship in a certain direction, set goals in terms of what we want to achieve, and how do we work towards them? So, on today's Misperceived, is it in fact a misperception that New Year's goals are ineffective? Are they garbage? I'm going to talk to you about two articles, just to give you little snippets about what's come through the research. One is from Bettina Holsche, Adam Brugger, and Claude Messner, and it's entitled Making New Year's Resolutions That Stick, Exploring How Superordinate and Subordinate Goals Motivate Goal Pursuit. This was in Applied Psychology, Health and Wellbeing in 2020. They basically start out by talking about goal-setting theory that says, you need very specific goals to help you achieve what you want to achieve, to get you to, quote, boost your performance. And they talk about superordinate goals and subordinate goals. Superordinate goals are these big, lofty goals. And then the subordinate goals are ways in which you kind of can take baby steps towards them. This is the language that they're using in this academic literature, but I find it quite confusing. So I'm going to take it out, and I'm going to say, instead of superordinate goals, I'm going to say big abstract goals and baby goals. I'm going to do big goals and baby goals. A big goal would be something like, I want to get healthy, or I want to lose weight. We know historically that women were much more likely to have goal-targeted weights as New Year's resolutions or big goals. But I'll say that I think over time, with the rise of social media and the influence of kind of images of fitness and health, that men feel this pressure an incredible amount now too. Biohacking, or how do we make sure we are at our optimal fitness? Sometimes these are just weight loss goals wrapped up in a different cloth, right? And so you might have this big goal of, I'm going to lose weight or I'm going to be healthy, but within that, it needs a baby goal like, I'm going to walk 30 minutes a day. And so their question is, what happens when people set these kind of big goals and these baby goals together? Does it help it stick? The problem is that often when we set these New Year's resolutions, and they note this in this article, that it requires us to change our behavior, and not just in the first week, but long term. I don't know about you, but I am pretty quick to move towards homeostasis, right back to the center where I was, which is why I decided that I'm pretty much perfect the way I am, because somehow, no matter what, I end up right in the middle. And so this is what they're saying, is you have to have this big focus and you have to have behavioral change. So you have to make sure that your actions start to align with your goals, you sustain it, and you resist anything that competes with that, any counter temptation. And you have to become resilient when you start to get knocked back from your goal. And what this means is that these big goals have to have some sort of kind of long-term vision. They have to be something like, I'm going to be healthy, or I'm going to read, or I'm going to get smarter, or I'm going to make more friends. And they don't necessarily have a clear end date. It's not like I'm going to be healthier by January. And what they're saying is that they need to be kind of achieved through a series of small steps. So you need the subordinate goals. And so what's interesting is, say, Mark Griffith, who's a researcher at the International Gaming Research Unit and a professor of behavioral addiction at Nottingham Trent University, wrote this article in The Conversation talking about the psychology of New Year's goals. And one of the things that he points out is that there's kind of these top resolutions that people make. The first is that they're going to lose weight. The second is that they're going to do more exercise. The third is that they're going to quit smoking. And the fourth is that they're going to save money. These are big goals, lofty goals. You don't necessarily have an end date on them, right? And in order to achieve them, you need to have tiny goals within. So this is what I want you to think about. They're trying to understand this, first is, are these the types of goals you set? Or do you set something different? We'd be curious to hear what you do. You can let us know at Misperceived Podcast on our Instagram, or at Prof. Leah on Instagram. But the question is, what are the goals you're setting? Are you setting these lofty goals? And so what they're doing in this study is they're asking people, they're surveying people at one time point and then following them over time. And they're asking them to make a New Year's resolution, but they're getting different groups. So certain people only set a big goal, like I'm going to quit smoking. Certain people only set a baby goal, like I'm going to walk every day for 30 minutes. Some people set a big goal, I'm going to get fit and I'm going to walk every day for 30 minutes. And some people just didn't actually set a goal. They just kind of had a New Year's resolution and they didn't then have a goal tied to it. And what they did was then they followed them over time and asked them 3 months after New Year's Eve how they were doing. How was it going? They have about 300 people, which is not huge, honestly. So let's take everything with a little bit of a grain of salt. And they were interested in what happened. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the nuance in the results. And the reason why I want to do that is because they have kind of different findings. And what I think when they end up with these kind of range of different findings, what it suggests is that we're pretty much humans who are a little bit stuck in our patterns, and it's hard to shift behavior. There's no clear answer on this. So that's why I'm going to walk you through some of the results so you can take what you want from what you want. The people who perceived that it would require the most effort to pursue their goals were those who set big and baby goals. If you set a big and baby goal, it was seen as having kind of higher effort. Those who only set those big goals thought it was going to take a long time to get to their goals. Those who were setting those big goals or the baby goals or the big and baby goals, when they followed them up later on, it didn't really matter in terms of their commitment to the goal. So 3 months later, whether you had set a big goal or a baby goal or a big goal and a baby goal, it didn't really matter how committed you were later on. What mattered was how committed you were at the start. Now, what this means is that, if I think I'm a healthy person and I'm committed to being healthy, by the end of 3 months, I'm going to still be committed to being healthy. So there's something about me as a person that's structuring that. This is my long way of saying I don't think the goals matter. If you have a view of yourself as being X, I'm hardworking, I'm athletic, I'm whatever, you're going to set goals that you're more committed to, and then you're going to follow them over time and you're going to be more committed to them. If they set some sort of baby goal, though, 3 months later, they thought that they were successful. So let me do this again for you. If I set a big goal, I think I'm going to have to do a lot of work on it. I am going to achieve my goals if it's tied to the person I think I am, but I'm going to feel most successful when I set those little baby goals 3 months later. This makes sense because little baby goals, like I'm going to work for 30 minutes less a day, or I'm going to spend 15 fewer minutes time on social media, you can achieve those. And you can see what they are and you can measure it. But if I set a goal, I'm going to be incredible. How do I know if that's going to happen? That's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to potentially take a lot of time. And it's really going to determine how committed I am, whether I am committed from the start or not. So should you set the goals? After reading this, I was like, what does this matter, right? On some level. I think on some level, what it tells you is that it's pretty critical for us to get clear on who we want to be and maybe align our lives with our vision of ourselves that is our best self. If you want to set baby goals and then work towards them, that I think you can to give yourself a little sense of accomplishment in between. But this idea that all of a sudden start New Year's Day, we're going to set this transformational goal and we're going to get to it 3 months later is just nonsense, right? And the results are kind of mixed on this in terms of their study. It's not clear. It's not clear the purpose. So I think if you're going to set the goal, get your purpose clear and then go for it. I'm going to just talk to you about one other study that has one little other baby thing that I thought was kind of interesting in terms of goal setting. So there's this article by Martin Oscarson, Per Calabring, Gerard Anderson, and Alexander Rosenthal. And it's a large-scale experiment on New Year's resolutions. Approach-oriented goals are more successful than avoidance-oriented goals. Now, that is what they're telling you is the finding in the title. This came out in +1. And they basically took about 1,000 people in the general public, and then they randomly assigned them to different groups. One basically had no support. You just set your kind of New Year's resolutions and nothing supported you. Some had some support where you try to say hey, I'm going to have a buddy, or you had some sort of small thing to help support you towards your goal. And then another had this really extended support where they were kind of reminding them and telling them again and again, here's what you're supposed to be doing. In terms of that, right, the people who with a little baby bit of support, those who kind of had one or two things that was going to help them achieve their goal, were the most successful. So there you go. What they found that I thought was most interesting was they said, when you set a goal that is about approach, you're more successful than when you set a goal that's about avoidance. So let me give you an example of what that means. If I set a goal where I'm like, I am going to never eat dessert again. I'm going to avoid dessert. Have you done this? I'm just going to cut out all carbs and avoid dessert. Basically, when you set a goal that is about avoiding something, you're no longer going to do something. You're no longer going to access something. You're no longer going to eat something. You're no longer going to use your phone. It's zero. You're avoiding it. Those goals are really hard to achieve. When you set an approach-based goal where you're thinking about more, I'm going to integrate more exercise. I'm going to integrate more vegetables. I'm going to integrate more. Those goals are much more likely to achieve. You can imagine they're two ends of the spectrum, right? If you have a weight loss goal, for example, but your goal is actually to cut carbs or cut sugar or cut something, you could flip it and do I'm going to add more vegetables to my diet. And people are much more successful when they have an additive, an approach-oriented goal than when you're avoiding something. So if you're going to set your goals, stop avoiding. Avoidance automatically makes you want to have. So is it in fact a misperception that New Year's resolution goals are just total nonsense? And should you participate in them? I can't advise you in your life. You should do exactly what you want to do. If you think it would be useful for you to set some sort of goal or a New Year's resolution and this works for you, Godspeed, right? Good for you. This is wonderful. There are some tips coming from these articles about better ways to do that. Set kind of small, tangible goals that you can achieve. Think about the things you're really committed to. think about an abundance rather than an avoidance. I mean, they don't say abundance, but I'm saying that. An abundance mindset rather than avoidance. How do I add more of the good things to take away less of the bad? But if you are one of those people like me that already feels like you have enough pressure to always be doing the next thing, the right thing, good things, then you don't have to set these goals. Because the truth of the matter is that most of us don't achieve them. The rates of not achieving our New Year's resolutions are so much higher than they are of actually achieving them. Where I think there's value is sitting in the space to think about next year, what do I want to be more of? More kind, more patient, more interesting, a better listener. Those are the types of goals that I'll be setting, right? The thinking about the things in which that are aligning with who you want to be and where do you want to give more time to. I think across the podcast, right, we've shown you that time is precious, that the demands are exceptional, that women are feeling this constant drain, that there's so much pressure to get it right. And the minute you've mastered one thing, the next thing comes in. So maybe less of that, more boundaries about what gets your time and what doesn't, what gets your energy and what doesn't, is a really useful New Year's resolution. As per usual, thank you so much for listening to Misperceived, where you don't need a PhD, you just get to come hang out with me. And we're so looking forward to spending the next year with you. This podcast was produced with the support of the incredible Sophie Squires, the wonderful Kate Danger, the fantastic Rich Berner, and the one and only, the best ever made, Serena Reagan. I would like to acknowledge that our podcast is recorded on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people listening today.